Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council work session and special meeting of Tuesday, February 10th. Call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented and request that all presentations and discussions be conducted respectfully and in a manner mindful of everyone's time.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So first on our agenda, we have public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Come up, state your name and mailing address. Keep it under 3 and be kind and respectful. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Okay, is there anyone online? Oh, I'm sorry, who will, make public comment? Oh, okay.
Randy Neal, PO Box 1092. I see a discussion topic on the transient room tax a little later. I just want to make a couple of comments about it. It lists comparisons to other cities, but it only lists 4. And one of those is Eugene, which is 100 times bigger than we are. Seems to happen all the time where we don't get compared to realistic places. So I would suggest that we pick 5 or 6 local neighbors, whether it's Astoria, Seaside, whatever, pick 5 or 6. And then pick another 5 or 6 that are other small tourist towns, Sisters, Dundee, Cascade Locks, Yachats, Walport, whatever. But if you're ever going to compare yourself, pick these 10 or 12 people over and over and over again. It doesn't make sense for us to compare ourselves to Eugene. So whatever you want to do, find these cities that you think are relevant to you and compare yourselves all the time. The second thing is it attempts to project future funding levels, and it suggests that 2.5% be used as an annual increase. And this is just wrong. The city publishes a history of the TLT receipts covering 15 years. It's pretty clear that this average has averaged like 6% year over year, pretty consistently. And so does the prepared food tax over the last couple of years. We know this is 5, 6, 7%. It's, inflation plus, it's all the room stuff. So using 2.5% doesn't help you guys make decisions. Let's use the real data and allow you guys to make the decisions using real data, not, things that are suppressed or conservative or whatever. And then when we get to the recommendations, there's really only 2 or 3 recommendations, and I don't understand why we can't have 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 out of the 3 are, how to make the life of the city easier, and only really 1 without much specificity, talks about how to make the village or how to make the village's businesses life easier. We can do better.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Is there anybody on Zoom? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll start off with the discussion items, and first on the agenda is the 2025 accessibility report. Chris?
Good evening. And I have Mr. Passo joining us as well, who is our consultant that completed the accessibility report this year. Going into a little bit of a summary of the background, we had a lawsuit that was settled in 2000 related to Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And as part of that consent decree, we agreed to conduct an ADA compliance review every 5 years, starting in 2005 and until 2030. So as part of this year for 2025, Mr. Passo completed that ADA compliance review. Mr. Passo visited Cannon Beach during the early part of November and conducted a detailed evaluation of the city's accessibility status and future planning for both compliance and tsunami preparedness. Following his site visit, he compiled his findings into this report that's included in your packet. The report is overwhelmingly positive with Mr. Passo noting in his findings, quote, "The city's infrastructure exhibits overall strong ADA compliance with notable improvements in restrooms, sidewalks, and trail systems. However, additional enhancements are recommended to achieve full universal accessibility and strengthen resilience." Additionally, Mr. Passo reviewed the new city hall and police station permit design documents and believes the design appear to be comply fully with ADA guidelines and does an exceptional job of maximizing universal design of critical elements of the building. As I mentioned, Mr. Passo is attending virtually to answer any questions that council may have. Concluding here, a recommendation, staff is not asking for a recommendation at this time, but future funding may be requested to address optional projects recommended in compliance review.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
How much does this cost each year, President?
Great question. I don't have the answer to that. I can certainly pull that information and let you know.
Oh, I was just asking because our consent agreement is until 2030, so we essentially have one more of these.
That's correct.
If it's not unreasonable, I don't know why we wouldn't just keep doing this every 5 years.
Certainly
Just
something.
for transparency, make sure everyone knows, hey, we're doing what we can for the compliance and if
Absolutely.
it's not unreasonably expensive,
Yeah, I think
no
for
reason for asking that question.
budget discussions, I think that I'll be able to come prepared with that information, so council has that.
That's a great idea.
I looked it up, it's $7,000.
Oh, okay.
7,000?
Yeah.
Rock on the pocket. Anybody else have any questions?
No,
I might have missed it. When did he come by and take a look at stuff?
November 3rd through
Okay.
November 5th
Okay.
of last year.
Okay.
Any thoughts about addressing any of these in the near term?
Lots of thoughts. Yeah, there are a couple items after my review that look like we could do some immediate things. So we got the ball in motion on completing those. And then, yeah, it's the report does a good job of laying out what could be accomplished in years 0 to 2 and then 2 to 5 and then beyond. So I think as part of some of the committees that I'm overseeing, we'll go ahead and get them this information and then we can start to put some strategic plans together. But yeah, there was some immediate stuff.
I did like the way that was pointed out, like these are the really super important buckets.
And it seems like long-term, something that we've talked about as a council too, is there are some parts of town that, getting out of town for an able-bodied person, getting somewhere safe, during tsunami evacuation is a challenge, and
All downtown.
all of downtown, and that's, it seems like, you did a lot of recommending of, elevated tsunami evacuation, points. And I'm not sure we have any option except that. Honestly, I don't know how we can get people out of downtown into a higher area. But I think that's something that we should keep on the radar and discuss further.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council. Thanks, Mr. Passo.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine.
Getting up easy tonight.
Done.
He's gone.
I think the connection was a little iffy anyway with the transit around.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we have the land trust research presentation.
Was not so much a presentation, because I don't know that I have any clear answers to anything or proposals for anything. When Jen contacted me, it was basically, how about if I write up everything I know or everything I've talked to people about? And you guys get a chance to read it and then we can chat about it. I will give you the overview of, I heard this a long time ago, 5-6 years ago. And it was like, that's interesting. And it seems like it could be a good solution to sort of twist the, the conversion from full-time residents to second homes, eventually, might take some time. And then through time, there was all the discussion about wetlands and trees and whatever, and how can we make things have the look and feel of a village and whatever, and it's like, well, if we have something like this, and its goal is to make, us live in a community that we wanna live in, as it, got access to lots or whatever, could build things in the way we want to be respectful of building things. There's lots out here that, haven't been developed on yet, but somebody's gonna figure out how to push it through someday, and if we could get our hands on those now and do something respectful, whether it's a tiny home or an ADU or something, it eventually probably be a much better goal than what somebody new coming to town is going to do. And so it was like, we could kill a lot of different birds with one stone, if this, had some traction and had some, scale. And then as the whole housing discussion happened and the things about ADUs and density and, deed restrictions and whatever, it was like, this sure feels much better than some of those things. Because, we're trying to talk to somebody new who's got their dream to take their lot and build something on it, or take their small cabin and build something big on it. And, telling them that they really should have a deed restriction is not something they're going to, we're talking to the wrong people. We need to be talking to people who've lived here a long time, who really want to see it continue to be what it is. And, rumor has it, there's empty lots around that are owned by people that would like to ensure they don't go to second homes, and they've never been developed because they don't want those kinds of things to happen. There's been talks about, vacancy tax and whatever, and, if you think about it, this can also basically be the same thing, but, could we twist it so it acts like philanthropy? Could we tell people that when, enjoy your years here, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but leave something behind, leave a sliver of your sales price, or leave a portion of your sales appreciation. It's like your home didn't go up because of you, your home went up because it's Cannon Beach. So enjoy it and then leave something behind. It's something a lot more palatable than, you get taxed, and nobody else does. And then the other one is, it can be like a philanthropy, just like any other university or North Coast Land Conservancy or whatever. This is your legacy gift, leave your house behind, or sell your house to it now and live in it the rest of your years, and then it'll go towards something else. It could be somebody, this could be the entity that helps figure out ways to add ADUs to places that nobody else really has an incentive. New people clearly don't. The people that want to live here aren't doing it to try to rent to anybody new. I went back through all of the minutes for DRB for like the last 7 years until, DRB started reviewing these, and we averaged like 2 a year. And basically, if you look at people's description, it's they want the family flex space to be able to have more space. So, the ADU thing is a good concept, but it needs some kind of kickstart or some way to do it. I only live a couple houses down from sea level. I've thought many times that I can probably do the space, but it's a big lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of issues to get through the whole building process, and who wants to be a landlord? Which goes back to that housing thing. Everybody coming to build their dream, how do you convince them that they really should be a landlord? So, I've been paying attention to little bits and pieces for a long time, and then I started asking around, does anybody else in town know anything about this kind of stuff? Started with Clay, because I knew he was commercial real estate in Portland, and I knew they were doing things in Portland, and asking what he knew, not much. And then I talked to Chad, not much, and Jay Orlov, not much. A couple of my neighbors here are commercial real estate, either in Portland or Seattle, got sort of the same answers, but eventually, you know, people would pass me to another person, or whatever, and there felt like there is some interest in, you know, passing on lots and homes and whatever, as well as, you know, this was a plan that when, if you tell people, it sounds like it's just as good as anything else that they've heard. So started doing a little bit more. It turns out that Harvey has a son who lives in one of these in Methow Valley. Harvey spent a lot of time looking into it, and you know, one of the developers, or not, one of the neighbors in commercial real estate, turns out that he's the one financing the apartments that just went up on Seaside at Holiday. And as you go around and talk to more people in town, you find possibilities where it might be able to happen. But, you know, you also run into people that say it'll never happen. You know, it's, people wanna say they're doing something about housing, but, you know, nothing will ever happen about housing, and, or it's too damn expensive here. You know, it's $400 a square foot to build anything. You know, it's $200,000 to do an ADU, and $200,000 back to a rent amount isn't affordable. You know, so, you know, the further research I did was there is this, Unity Land Trust regional, organization, in the Northwest. It's, you know, Montana, Idaho, Washington, you know, and, you know, that one of the other things that caught my eye about this time last year, you know, the entity in, Bend was getting $25 million, and they didn't sound like they had much of a track record. You know, and then you run into things like the, Sandy's Place in Thompson Springs, which, you know, it's a little development for disabled, people. And you find out that Proud Ground, which is the Community Land Trust in Portland, is basically doing all the paperwork for them to do that. So, I mean, we always talk that, you know, deed restriction is the only way to really do this. You know, my neighborhood in Portland has deed restrictions, and we've learned that it's nothing but a bunch of lawsuits that one neighbor has to put on another if you want to enforce them. But if you had an entity whose whole goal in life was to do this deed restriction and do it in ways that the village wants it, may take some time, it may take 20 years, but, you know, maybe we could tilt the tables from second homeowners back to people who want to live here. Yeah.
First of all, I want to compliment you on really a great presentation. It was really interesting and informative and well organized, so I really appreciate it. I have a couple questions, kind of, Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay, first one is, don't you think it's better to have donated land or surplus land rather than buying land and entering the free market, which will end up just driving up prices of land?
Well, yes, we should always get donated land first. You know, but at some degree, you're probably, you know, you can probably buy cheap parcels and still make progress. And, you know, and part of this also was generated once I realized how much excess money the city has. Yeah, and we'll continue to have year after year. So,
Well, the other question, a couple questions I had. Second one is, I was always have been wondering along what or has, maybe I'm not aware of it, has Orla helped to fund any of these projects, these land trust projects? Because I'm wondering what contributions they've made, since they really are one of the main beneficiaries of having workforce housing.
So I don't know of any directly, but like I said, I haven't done a lot of research. I've done a fair amount. But one of the things that has come up in conversation is, I run by this by people that I think are involved in SMART. So it was like, Patrick, I want some input here. And Scott, when I talked to, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Elise Getler, I find out she worked for Scott Kirchen. So I was like, oh, Scott should know about housing. One of the topics that came out of this is something called tourism improvement district, which, on one hand, one option could be roll that TLT thing by 0.5% or 1%. Institute a tourism improvement district, which is basically having the tourism businesses and lodging businesses tax themselves with that money all going towards this housing and their builders. And, that way they know that it's going to be spent towards the things that are going to, deal with their employees and their businesses and whatever. So. Yeah, I don't know of any directly, but I do see a path that could, directly involve them.
Yeah, I mean, it seems they have a lot of money for offering people.
We're always a lobbying entity.
Right.
Yeah.
Oregon City.
I know.
As a lobbying.
But this is less about Orla and more about, the businesses that are involved in the village.
Right, well,
I mean, because that's the other one is there's something similar to this happening in town, for years. I mean, the businesses that have resources have been doing this. They go buy houses and spots and have either provided it for their own workforce or they got it, There's a couple of lots across the street here that have been talked about for years about using for workforce housing, and they're available and they're still empty. And they're owned by, one of the hotels. And then the other one is, like talking to somebody who's like, oh, well, Christian Conference Center has been doing this for a long, long time and they'll continue to do it, so. It's a proven concept, that has been going on and will continue to go on. And if we don't participate, it'll just all keep turning, into either second homes or bigger slices for the people that have, and then there's businesses that don't have and that will suffer.
Well, I don't know, maybe Jeff knows this. Do you have a list of all unoccupied vacant land owned by the city of Cannon Beach? You do, and you have it. It'd be interesting to see because, the more I think about this, the more I like the idea of donated land or city land or city owned land, just because, again, you don't have to rely on the free market to get involved with it. And then,
Yeah, I think, I'll be happy to review those with you when we talk about housing and at the next work session.
oh, that would be great, you see where it is and what it is. And like one last question here, I don't want to dominate you, but, sometimes I was confused about when you talk about housing, because to me, affordable housing is government subsidized housing. That like Elk Creek is affordable housing. And you're talking about workforce housing or both?
I'm talking primarily about workforce, middle housing. Because, I mean, I learned what Elk Creek was the very first time I called them and said, hey, I'll help you figure out the utility problem. When I pulled up their website and saw, oh, they're doing 12 other kinds of services, kids services, foods, so it's like, if you have one of those, you need a partner like like those people, like a CAT or, the subcontractor that's doing Shorewood, because they have the expertise. You can't do that, kind of thing. So it's more of middle housing. One of the big questions I would have for one of these, these gatherings of the CLTs would be, they focus primarily on ownership. And yeah, ownership here might be an element, but I think, just having a place to rent is maybe even more important. But, and it doesn't seem like people are, these CLTs are providing rentable houses. It's usually, someplace that somebody can own. And then there's a promise and it's part of the deed and whatever that, it can only be sold to, under those same kinds of circumstances.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Cause there is an element of, once you start renting, somebody has to answer the maintenance calls and somebody has to collect the rental checks and whatever. But, when I ran into that, it was like, I'll go have a conversation with Brian Olson. And say, hey, short-term rentals are gonna fade out. Would this kind of be a business model that you think you or one of the other short-term rental management companies could be able to do? And he said, well, you have to be licensed to do sort of long-term renting. You have to have a real estate license, and one of my people do, and that's probably viable. You give them some cut of.
So the management of properties might be outsourced to
Yeah.
someone. It wouldn't be the land trust that would be.
Yeah, I mean, cause to start, you don't have that infrastructure there, maybe you have a person or something that's just sort of. Basically being, how can I get donations and how can I get money and how, whatever, and a lot of this stuff you have to sort of go bare bones for a while until you can have a track record, and then you can go to the state and say, okay, I have a proven track record, this seems to be working in the village, and, we could use a bigger chunk of money to extend utilities, or we could use a bigger chunk of money to get into the hillsides, like one of the first people I talked to, Dewey. He's got land up behind him in Haystack Heights, and, there's issues with it all, whether it's money or profit or whatever, but, it's conversations that if we are the community, we should be able to figure it out, or.
And I forgot that bend $25 million you referenced, I can't remember, was that
12, I think it
12
was
million?
12 million.
Was it federal money?
It came from the state, so I don't know what the source totally was,
Okay.
so,
What did that project look like?
what's that?
What did that project look?
Well, I mean, I think most of them, because the other one is I went and talked to the CFO for the Proud Ground people. And they're basically building cluster kinds of complexes.
So was it a specific project that they received money for?
And Proud Ground sounded like, years ago, they've been around like 30 years, and in the beginning, they dealt with donated land and donated homes and whatever, and now they pretty much just focus on complexes.
Did you, have you heard of any examples of land trusts that work, kind of on small properties, like, okay, you have a lot, you do a little duplex or something?
I think that's how most of them get started, that's what it sounded like Proud Ground got started with, right? It doesn't solve any problems immediately, it's not scale enough, but.
Or housing, would take
there's
just about anything.
There's a little cabin down the street from, Hannah and Eric here that is like, does anybody ever live in it? And, what could you buy it for? And how does that work? And, I talked to like Jason Menke's dad, runs the park district in Beaverton, and he spends a lot of time here. So it's like, what do you think about this kind of thing? On one hand, this is what I do for the Park Service. I buy up homes and we end up building parks and trails, and somebody gets to live in them, and, there's some amount of money, or it's gifting, or it's whatever, so.
Another question that comes up for me, and you may not have the answer, but I'll throw it out there. Would grant money, state or federal, be available for small projects like that?
I mean, to me, it's like, we need to build a track record before you can go probably seek those kinds of amounts and whatever. And, if we spent 5 years doing little things here, this lot, that lot, this home, that home, it sort of felt that, if we could figure out a way that there's a set of individuals in town who's willing to push this idea forward, and the city was in conjunction with it, then would that unlock other kinds of things? Would it unlock, somebody's estate thinking, or somebody's empty lots that they've been sitting on, or, you know, workforce housing plans that don't seem to go anywhere. Or whatever.
That's the big question for me is how can we incentivize the establishment of the land trust, that small group? How can we encourage it? Is there, obviously, you need two things. You need property and you need a land trust.
Yeah.
More than that, but, so what can we do that, incentivizes that? Incentivizes, I don't know, how do we find the people that form a land trust that?
I don't know, but you know, I came to the budget meeting last year with a thought in mind, and that was, why doesn't cities put up $500,000 or $1 million towards the housing fund and act serious about housing? And you guys put up $500,000. And I guarantee that I'll be here again this budget meeting and say, how about another $500,000 or $1 million? You know, regardless if it's for a land trust or anything else that we want to do, but I think we have to really show we're serious about solving the housing problem.
I think the conference center is a good example. It's like they didn't do it all at once. They bought a little bit here, a little bit there, and after a while, they own, you know, half the town down there.
Well, you know, that's the other one. You mentioned duplex. It's like, it's really hard to imagine how somebody can justify building, you know, come to town and decide to build a duplex, right? I mean, it's either gonna be a condo. It's not gonna be for middle housing, workforce housing, because, you know, and one of my fears in all of this is the cost to build things in Cannon Beach. I mean, the first person who really puked on it hard said, you know, it's $400 a square foot in Cannon Beach, and you can do the math and realize nobody can afford anything. You can't afford to live in an ADU that costs $400. You know, and I had a neighbor that I knew was interested in doing an ADU just for himself. And it's like, hey, where are you at in your plans? Well, I gave up, you know, it was too hard to get through with the city. And then I realized it was gonna cost me like $230,000 and, you know, and then as we started shaving it down to what I could do for myself and this and that, I could get it down to like 150, but that meant, you know, no appliances and other stuff. So I was like, I think this is real, you know, and I talked to John Northrow, whose son is a builder, you know, sort of get the same kind of feedback. You know, I talked to some of the builders who came to the planning commission meeting and were complaining about, you know, building things and whatever. So I think it's a real phenomenon that I don't know if is solvable, but you know, if there are 100 incoming second homeowners who are not price sensitive, right? I mean, every builder is gonna go towards where they can get dollars. And that means all their work and all their materials, we'd have to pay that. Which also led me to, you know, I play tennis with Pastor Bill, who's in charge of Copeland Commons. He was in the newspaper for all the headaches that he was running into, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that didn't apply here. He said, no, we're in a historic building and the money issues and blah, blah, blah. But he did say, you know, the Lutheran churches around the US are all looking at how can we use the fringe space around all of our churches to put small, tiny homes on and make them available for people who can't afford regular homes. And he directed me to this website in Albany, which turns out, you know, then I got a phone call from his son who's helping him. And so, you know, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, manufactured home thing that they're trying to do, you know, countrywide, to try to make something affordable, you know. I don't know how that would work in terms of materials and things like that related to the coast, but, you know, if it's really $400 a square foot, then you have to go to some other kind of construction techniques or, you know, look and feel and.
Curious when you talk to Patrick and Scott, did they?
Well, I think Patrick is very interested in, sort of the tourism investment district or improvement district kinds of concept. Then he is
That
confident.
money going to land trust or, I mean, what's,
You know, I think it is. He knows the money is going to be dedicated and is going to be directed towards something that is going to be necessary for, you know, it's not going to be usurped 5 years later. By something else, or, you know, it's not going to be redirected into something else as like the tourism, you know, the TLT can be, today.
I guess
Scott-
I'm trying to
Scott
figure out the
wasn't-
distinction between TLT being used for destination improvement.
Well, no, so that's the issue, right? It's like there's no clear line that says it could ever be used for something like housing,
Right,
right? So.
well, the TLT or
TLT,
a tourism improvement.
that's the TLT,
I mean, there's a pretty clear line that says it can't.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
But a TID could.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it seems like we have excess TLT. So dial it back a 0.5% or 1%. But replace it fully with another 0.5%, you know, with an equivalent 0.5% or percent that goes to a tourism improvement district that is primarily, you know, housing.
So how I'm not super familiar with how the taxation would work in separating out what a tourism improvement district is versus what TLT collection is.
Well, my understanding is, you know, basically TLT, it's the municipality is imposing a tax, right? Which can then be used as the municipality decides or if the rules from the state, you know, require or whatever. The tourism improvement district, there is basically.
Is it paid to a different entity then, so it doesn't touch city coffers, it goes to straight to the nonprofit that's.
Well, yeah, I don't know how.
Whatever entity it is.
Yeah, I don't know how that particularly all works, but it's basically, it's a tax that's self-imposed by the tourism industry. So, you know, and I don't have a lot of information about that either, but. And Scott wasn't, you know, super aware of what a TID could and couldn't do and stuff like that, so. It's
Do you know what,
just an option out there.
what, the Halem, you had the Halem, with their project with Brad Brown, sitting here, do you know what the Halem's, how they financially got involved, what they were doing in order to encourage that particular project to interest Brad Brown in helping them with that project?
Well, my guess is it's probably like us, it's like, Halem doesn't have its own, you know, CLT, and it's some level of complexity, and they'd like to go that route, but didn't have the expertise to do it, so somebody must have known,
So you think they just reached out to Brad Brown and said, hey,
we need help.
we need help with it?
Okay. Yeah, I was up in Astoria on Saturday, you know, sitting in on a topic about vacancy tax in Astoria, and, you know, part of it was, hey, what do you guys know about CLT? Well, we're sort of aware of them, but, you know, we think we can get this one through easier than other kinds of things, so.
Sounds like
you
the
know,
same story, everyone else, we're aware it exists,
Yeah,
but
and, you know, and for me, the right thing would have been in October. Go to the gathering of all those other CLTs and take 2 or 3 people or 3 or 4 people.
where was it last October?
Um,
Was it nearby? Because I see next October is sitting there. Not nearby, it's time to go to.
oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. I don't remember where it was, but it
It
was
was
like,
very trippable.
yeah, cause I considered just going and by myself.
Yeah.
But.
Okay.
It wasn't gonna work out. So.
you got a slide here that seems like pluses and minuses about doing something with the RV park, but it seems like you're saying that maybe there's a way to start small there and learn, and that's a trial
I
run.
mean, there's a couple of things. One is, let's build our track record on and engage the community in some way that, you know, we start getting people to either give us homes or give us lots. And start small that way, you know,
I think it
and
helps.
one of the indicators is, you know, let's take whatever slivers of land around the RV park that can be used. Like, you know, it comes up occasionally, like there are some. You know, I have mixed feelings of, you know, the RV park is a valuable tourism.
We all have
asset,
mixed feelings
and,
about that.
you know, the other one is. You know, the free market is very powerful, and we've probably seen lots of things through the years that started off as middle housing that we lost. You know, it's, whether it's Elk Creek, condos down there, or, you know, lots of different things that, you know, it's just too powerful, and this seems like the most rock solid way to make sure that it be restriction.
I was wondering if we started small at the RV park, and picked a spot. Is that going to be, you know,
Is that
the start of the incentive to put together a nonprofit land trust? I mean, that's, again, it's the property and it's the organization, and how do we incentivize it and encourage, you know, a few talented individuals to.
Yeah, I mean, like the second person I went to reach out to was Chad, because I knew of this stuff he had done with Archgate. And it's like, and he had a nonprofit, right? So, you know, but he's gonna run into a lot of the things related to parcels around here is, you know, they're up on the hillsides and there's no utilities, and that makes everything twice as expensive to build them, and that, you know, even if you want to build them cheaply, you can. So, and, you know, and then the other one is all of these seem to have, you know, like Kat came and described sort of a three-pronged, board, you know, part of it is, you know, housing experts or housing, people, you know, interested in that kind of thing. But a third are sort of community members, and a third are people who want to live in these things and buy these things. So, any other questions?
I just was curious again about you said that Chad, he just doesn't have experience in land trust, but he's doing something totally, but what he's trying to do is something totally different. Donated land, affordable housing,
Yeah,
not really middle housing.
well, that I don't know, but because, you know, I haven't spent a lot of, you know. I probably had an hour, Zoom call with him once, and then we, you know, you and I and he and Richard and whatever, we had like another hour kind of conversation, but, you know. Every time it comes up, it's, you know, we need to have some number of market, rent housing to be able to make affordable housing, which,
Well, he seems to be focused on donated land.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's really, that's the only way he thinks it pencils out, of course, unless you have someone donate
Yeah,
the housing like you're talking with the land trust. But
Yeah, I think it's both donated land and then federal and state funding
that's unclear right now.
that kind of ties you into rents at a percent of AMI. I mean, a local land trust could have some more flexibility. Again, I don't know if we would even qualify for those kinds of funds that would allow us to build some things based on that requirement, but you know, we could certainly do some things that would be at least a little more reasonable market rate.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, to me, you know, the thing about it is, you know, it's either buy the land or get the land, and, you know, and then all the rents are basically, you know, set up to, you know, to be able to pay or build, you know, the structure that's out there, you know, the dwelling. And yes, you know, the cost of a lot right now is not easily swallowable. But on the other hand, you know, the realization is we're saving that land for generations, you know, and it's sort of like a North Coast Land Conservancy kind of thing, and we're saving our community as opposed to natural spaces outside there.
I'm not opposed to buying property. I mean, I think we've seen it, you know, but.
I mean, like, one of those examples I did was the place behind the RV park there was, it had 2 units and maybe there was a spot for another ADU and, somebody had bought it. It's up for rent right now. It's $2,000 a month for, I don't know, 600 or 700 feet, which whatever, the River Run place in Seaside is now open and renting and they go from 1,500 for like a 600 square foot, 500 square foot to 2,500 for like 800 square feet. It's like
So.
not quite affordable.
So just kind of summarize this for myself and hopefully it may be clear a few things. Nonprofit doesn't have anything to do with the city.
Well, I mean, like one of the benefits could be as a nonprofit, it's exempt from certain things. Could be exempt or reduced property taxes, could be reduced or waived building fees or whatever.
But it is separate from the city.
Yeah.
But it's not an arm of the city, it's a
Correct.
separate.
So that means, excuse me, the city isn't a landlord. The land trust would be the landlord or the seller with and the leasee or of the land itself. And this is just something that there are builders that are philanthropic. And they will donate their profit. So basically they'll build, I mean, you're still gonna pay cost for all the materials, but they donate their profit, they pay their guys, whatever. So, that is another thing to look at. I don't know if you've looked into
I'm
that.
sorry, what did you say? What business you're talking about? There are.
There's builders that are philanthropic.
Oh.
So they donate and
Well, originally it was like, is there 1 or 2 builders that we could go partner with to help either renovate or build an ADU or whatever, and then once I realized the whole going cost of doing business as a builder here, it was like, no, maybe the only way to do this is ask each builder to do one like every other year.
well, and that's,
Every third year.
and if you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? But if the nonprofit were to be set up and the city was your first buy-in, the city donates a couple lots or something, donates some money, then that gives you a little edge into being able to go out to people and say, the city is behind this 100%, this is what they've done. And we want, we'd like you to join us.
Right. I mean, the biggest thing the city can do is probably on the building side as well. We want to be able to put these up, let's say an ADU, or if there's a vacant lot and we want to do a duplex on it or something, it needs to go up easy and quick and with, everybody on board on the right types of materials. And no, the nonprofit should come with the right look and feel and the right level of appreciation on trees and the wetland corner of the lot and stuff like that. It should be the most flexible group the city gets to work with.
Well, and I think that even you can get buy-in from power, gas, where they'll energize, bring utilities in at a extremely reduced cost. I mean, they're a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, the whole starting up point with, the thought behind that is if we can get lots of cabinets and donations to do stuff like that within the town, all the utilities are already there. Some of these things, you don't have to do much, it's like do nothing, you just have to start renting.
So you're thinking though, I'm just still trying to wrap my head around this. So you're thinking of this land trust actually renting, not the whole idea with Chet's group, he was talking about buying, you get equity in the house itself.
That's how most of these work. you know, but, you know, I just think that. I've also gone around and talked to a lot of people who are the renters. And it's like, I don't get the impression everybody wants to own, you know, it's more of they want a place that they can be at and be able to afford it. You know, there's other city and village employees, I think would be that, you know, so I think there's sort of like a little bit of both and, which all, you know, is all fine.
Well, and with that, with something like the land trust, there is, a whole lot more rental security.
Yeah.
The renter, right, would have to really ruin that relationship. It would be on the renter to ruin that relationship, yeah.
It's not, it's.
No, not just,
It's
oh,
not
I
gonna be
decided to
sold
sell.
to an SCR's second home or
Yeah.
whatever. It is what it is at that point.
I mean, but, you know, there's a lot of issues, you know, there's some level of complexity for a very small town, so it's like, do we need to partner with somebody else, or what's out there, and how would we make it? I don't have those kinds of answers. I don't think you do until you go spend time with people doing some of these kinds of things.
And the land trust itself would essentially manage any philanthropic efforts or ask for donations or ask for reduced sales prices or whatever. I guess to me, it really is.
I mean, the way it was pitched to me was, you know, it was brutal, but, actually real. You know, it's like, on one hand, we have a lot of, you know, old people who've lived their entire lives here. And they'd like to see it continue on even after they leave. And would they donate their house, or would they donate a chunk of their proceeds? Some people are already doing that with North Coast Land Conservancy. You know, and then we know that some of these people also have some of the lots. You know, but then on the other hand, we have some sliver of, I'll call it super wealth, of, you know, and they've been here many, many years and probably plan to stay here many, many years. They would never donate their house, you wouldn't want it, but it's fair asking. To be one of the contributing, you know, entities to what they give to, you know, and there's no harm in going and asking. So. You know, and then, like I mentioned before, then it's like, all these other second homeowners here are here for 10 years. It's like, hey, leave a sliver, you know, if you enjoyed it. You know, and you're getting $500,000 in appreciation. Leave some sliver behind. You know, enough that we can combine those slivers and make sure there's another employee that has a place to live.
Another, thing to look at, and did research on this years ago, but is Habitat for Humanity and their model.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, the
I'll
CLT,
speak louder, I'm sorry.
it's clear the CLTs have a wide range of how and what they build, right? So some of these are Habitat for Humanity, everybody get together and build a place, and then when we get done with that one, we build another one, and then some of them are just single lots and single homes, and some of them are now more doing complexes and stuff like that. Like I said, it seems like most of them are all focused on owning, and I don't know. I would want to go understand that, rationale and model a little bit more. My suspicion is, you know, if you lock somebody into owning, you know, they're going to, take better care of that unit than if they were a renter. And, you know, but just by the algorithmic portion of it, they get to walk away with some money where it's probably not much.
Trying to wrap my head around if the city put up hundreds of thousands of dollars or property. Essentially bring it to a land trust. How can we assure that, you know, our priorities are being met, you know, the goals of it are being met?
You know, that's a good question, and it's also made me think of other similar kinds of questions of, I think this sort of three-pronged board is very important as opposed to a set of experts or whatever, where, we all have to be, the people who want these places, the people who live here and they're providing money, working with the real estate experts or the building experts that's on that board are all in sync. Cause I wondered, what's gonna happen to Up Creek 2043, right? And Shorewood in 2043. There's nothing there that says they have to continue on as they are. Hopefully they would. But their investors got their money out of the tax credits and everything. So it becomes their property and, they can ask themselves, do they want to be managing this property? Or would they rather be managing some other property, sell it and be able to manage two more properties someplace closer to where they exist? I didn't, I had a conversation with Dan Brown very, very early on to see what he knew about. He didn't, and
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for all your research. Great. Thank you. Okay.
I was in applause from the audience.
Okay, next we have the transient room tax presentation.
Mayor, members of the council, today to go over the transit lodging tax. Was just letting Jen know that it's been 4 months since Randy has told me I've been wrong about something, so I kind of missed out.
one of those deserved ones.
So the goal here actually is just to kind of go over definitions. We kind of recenter you on where the tax is right now. I have some, next slide there. Here we go. I have some, examples. I'm not trying to compare entities. What I use those entities for is examples of what other entities are using their TID for. The projections, I'll get into those a little bit. And then just some potential ideas to go. What I'm really looking for here is for us to give you the information, you to give feedback. Is there anything additional you would like to forward, or is there other projections you would like to do? So, all right, slide please. And next one. So transit lodging tax is one of my favorite governmental definitions of all time. Transient room taxes constitute debt owed by the transient to the city, and the debt is extinguished only when the tax is remitted by the local tax trustee to the city. A transient is defined as a renter of less than 30 days. So if you're more than 30 days, then you actually don't end up paying the tax. But anyways, that's it. So our current taxes are the 6% where all funds go into the general fund. That was passed in 91. There was a 1% tax passed in 2010. That's for the for TAF. 0.7 goes to tourism and arts, 0.3 back to the general fund. Then the chamber, the one that's currently passed through the chamber, passed in 2015. And then of course, the tourism renovation fund was passed and implemented in 24. So it is the total currently is 9.5%. 7.05% of that tax goes into the general fund, 0.7 to TAF, 0.7 to the chamber, and 1.5 for the tourism facility renovation fund. There's also county TRT, which we receive 0.7 of 1% that comes through to us in the county TRT also. So that's one. So other jurisdictions. So what I want to show here is just to give you an idea, just some jurisdictions. So I think it is difficult, regardless of the size, to actually compare the revenue streams amongst the different jurisdictions, just because Cannon Beach basically has public weight, depends on how many rooms you have, et cetera, et cetera. So, but what I wanted to show you here is just kind of what other jurisdictions had. and what they've used this for. For example, in Astoria, they use it for Promote Astoria, which is essentially their chamber. Coos Bay uses it for art and history museums, plus they use it for the community events promotions. Right, so like hanging flower baskets, 4th of July, et cetera. Eugene uses it for live arts and entertainment, community and a farmer's market. And then Seaside uses it for their convention center and the prom. Right, so those are all kind of the very broad plethora of things that they use. And this is the 0.7 that they use for this. Seaside kind of lumps it all together to throw it in, but they also show where they use it for for police, et cetera, but that's.
Well, Seaside also funds all their marketing and the Visitor Bureau and.
Right, correct.
There's a lot more.
So, next page. So in ours, so that just kind of gives you an idea where you, when we get a little more, is that you will have access to money where you have, I think, a lot of different programs that you could fund if you wish via these funds. So what did I do with the financial projections? Randy is right in that 2.5 on an annual increase is historically low. However, in this year, first 2 quarters, it's not that low. The other thing is, I show that when I'm showing the projections here, I've removed all the funds that were proposed to potentially spend on NICUS. So that's like 6.6 million. The projections account for current obligations. So those things that we're already doing. Right, for instance, in the county TRT, we are paying for debt service and we are paying for, debt service and we are paying for HRAP that goes into the general fund, so that will continue on. I showed the chamber, the money that goes to the chamber, that would still be zero. I didn't make any assumptions on that, would grow to a certain degree because we would cap that, right? I didn't make any of those assumptions, right? And the basically total of all TRT funds is about $8.2 million.
That's
And that
right.
excludes the money for NICUS.
Yeah, so I've pulled the money, so when you look at the financial snapshot here, next page, please. I pulled the money out for NICUS.
Can you clarify what the 8.2 million represents?
That's where between the general fund and all of our other funds is how much TRT I get in a single year.
Okay.
So that's the total pot that comes to us every single year.
Okay.
Okay. So in the so if you look in the financial snapshot, so you'll see the fund of 1.5%, so that's the tourism, the facility, county TRT, TAF, chamber, right? So you'll see that there are 25-26 estimated balance is zero because all of that money in the fund balance would be used for NICUS. So that is the assumption that is made here. Okay, county TRT, you will notice that we have $1.8 million. That will just continue. We basically the ongoing funding currently is for debt service and money for HRAP. You could always change that, of course. Not the debt service, please, but you can change the HRAP. And then TAF is what they currently will have available to spend at the end. And then above what their current obligations are. So not what the new authority you've given them where you're looking to expand their grant program or any of that. This is just based on currently what they do right now. So that'd be about 190 a year.
And the 5-year balance is based on the growth.
And the 5-year balance is just pretty much based on growth. Again, these numbers are going to change, right? For instance, the 1.5%, right, shows 810,000. I did not make an estimate of what it would cost to do the maintenance and ongoing operation of NICUS, right? So that would most probably come out of here also. So that those decisions haven't been made, but then also, again, I did the 2.5% on the revenue. So we're probably somewhere in the ballpark. But this is just really to give you guys an idea of what kind of funds you would have available. So again, this is essentially, we've completely paid, this model, we've completely paid for NACUS, and this is ongoing. No other changes. Okay. All right, so then, what are some recommendations? And I should have probably said more, some ideas about these. So one of the recommendations was staffing. So we mentioned this at the retreat. Hiring a part-time staff member, their responsibilities would include the TAC committee. Currently, Jen does that. They would also be responsible for managing the chamber contract and then other tourism grant programs. And what I mean by that is with the money that you would have that would be available above and beyond what we currently have in TAC, et cetera, there'll be additional funds that are available. And this individual would help manage those funds. So probably through some grant program, maybe funding additionally in TAP, something like that. And then on two was, the recommendation would be develop additional grant programs. So, as I said, in examples in other cities, downtown beautification, additional music, trails. There's a couple of cities that have used it for trail programs, et cetera. So ideas like that, where you would invest in something that would attract tourism. And the last is, and this is actually on an ongoing project we're doing right now, is we're looking at implementing election collection process. And that's not just to help the city out, that is also to help out the payers of the tax. So that's our goal. And the current funds would be used to help fund that program. And so really, that's what I came to you with, and then just really wanted to open it up for discussion and get some additional direction.
I just out of curiosity, because I did, look at Seaside and copied out their fund transfers for 2024 anyway. And they did use some of the, TLT tax for a certain amount of it for public safety, you know, they prorated it. Some of it for emergency readiness, and some of it for public works, prorating it, you know, for what goes for tourism and what doesn't. And the same thing in Tillamook, they use a proportion of it for public safety, farmers market, tree maintenance and water fund loan. And they proportioned it out again, what percentage would be servicing,
Right.
you know, the tourism.
So technically, in theory, that's what we do as well, because what they do is they actually take the general fund TAF or general fund TLT and then make an allocation towards their public safety. We just throw it into the general fund pool and pay for all our police and pay for our farmers market, et cetera. So it's more of a reporting mechanism on there. I did talk to to Seaside CFO. And it's the way it's more of a kind of a reporting mechanism and the way they do it. So it's not that different from what we do right now. So they don't take the 70% in our time they're taking the 30% and making sure that it all equals out at the end. So it's still got a 70-30 split at the end of their thing. But one thing I didn't mention here, so there is another House bill in the short session, House Bill 4148, sorry. And that is to change the current split from 70-30 to 40-60. I don't think it will go forward in a short session. It could, but I don't think it would. But I also bet that in the next long session, something will happen. Because that's historically kind of, gets floated once, they try something in the short, and then some kind of compromise will happen in the third session. So something will probably happen.
So what do you see this staff member? They're gonna provide oversight for TAC, chamber. And then I guess the other is all the extra money that we're looking at on the 5-year projection. It seems like that's someone who's really kind of got a tourism mind, a marketing mind, that understands the, legal use of the funds.
We probably don't totally understand the legal portion of it, but they are definitely tourism based, would be my guess. And then they have support from us.
and some marketing experience to be able.
I would expect-
To
I would
provide
hope- I
oversight
would hope
of
so.
the chamber.
We haven't developed a job description or anything like that yet.
Yeah, I think that would be important. Like Erica said, it's like, you know, a lot of times, you know. Council tries to provide oversight on that, and I feel like we're kind of lost, and some of us have marketing experience and some of us don't, and we're always changing, and. I do like the idea of someone very, having a very consistent person following a consistent plan rather than it varying with each changing board or committee or council. Yeah,
And then it comes as a staff recommendation,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Then we have,
Right. Yeah, I think as you're looking at what we're doing, we're looking at with the chamber contract, I think with TAC and expanding their responsibilities and then the amount of dollars that we're looking at potentially beyond, once we've kind of gotten a COOS going, I think that this is potentially a much larger program that somebody to have eyes on that has expertise that, like we're saying, I do not have.
And maybe it's this person that figures out, because TAC is, you know, we've kind of pushed it to be that arts, tourism, events. And now we're getting a lot of people on it that are very art minded. So I don't know if it's this person that will be looking at how we start to break that up and making some recommendations about, you know, how much should we spend on arts and how much should we spend on parks and trails and how much should we spend on downtown beautification or the event program or.
I would expect the individual to kind of own the program, right? So to make recommendations for those levels, right? That would be part of the job, I would assume.
It seems like we have to come back to ground zero a little bit and look at the TAC funds and look at, you know, the excess from the chamber contract. And then the 5-year excess that you're looked at and kind of compartmentalize that into some areas.
I guess I'm not understanding though, when you say something about, you said something about marketing, and that confused me. Cause that's what chamber does.
And we want someone to provide some oversight, some more consistent oversight for the change.
Chamber, okay.
Yeah,
so when.
it wouldn't be,
Not to do.
So when the chamber, because one of the recommendations that I guess I made, was that the chamber turn in a marketing plan 3 or 6 months before the contract renewed, and that way this person could absolutely review that marketing plan and give, more insight
I see what you're saying, yeah,
and oversight all the
I
same.
understand.
and come to us with their recommendation to accept that plan and. So they just have to have some marketing experience to be able to provide that kind of oversight where. We may or may not be able to as a council based on who's on it.
Or want to,
Well, it takes a lot of time.
you know, yeah.
What's recommendation 3?
So, you'll know, well, if you are a payer of the tax, which 2 of the people up here are, it is, an incredibly.
We're collectors and remitters.
Collectors and remitters, I'm sorry, collectors. Yep, collectors and remitters of the tax. It is a intensely manual process. Both from the end user, so well, from my prepared food tax and from the, transit lodging tax side, but also on the end when we're actually booking it. It is all completely, it's manual. And so what we've got right now is a project that is interviewing local businesses, interviewing my team, essentially developing what a software answer and a process answer would be to make it both easier on the end user and easier on staff, so we would have better data. One thing is with better data, it would be easier for the people who are paying, that we're sending tags in to actually pay it, so that's what we're recommending.
For that, have you, I didn't fill out the survey, yeah. I didn't say that. I put this, but have you looked at the way the state's collection, their electronic collection at the state level works?
I haven't done it, I have not, I have been remiss and have not looked in detail.
Okay, so both of us.
Yeah.
Anytime, I felt like anytime you deal with the state, there's a lot of paperwork.
Mhm.
The TLT at the state is supremely easy.
Mhm.
Have they just made it super easy?
For that, everything else is a nightmare, but
Mhm.
that, for the TLT, remitting TLT to the state is, my opinion is, it's like the gold standard, like
Just easy.
four boxes and you're done.
Yeah.
It's very, very simple.
Yeah,
for
and
us.
in our office between, like, in, the end of June, beginning of July, I lose 2 staffers for 3 weeks. Based on business licenses and TRT and preparative tax remissions. Just cause again, it's all manual. And, then we get a lot of phone calls and et cetera, just because people are like, oh, there's something wrong with the form or something like that, so. We have sufficient funds, we should be able to make it far easier for everybody to use.
I had the opportunity to talk with, the consultant from SSW. I was expecting a gentleman, her name is Alex. But anyway, it was a really good conversation. I felt like she was, truly invested in what she was trying to help put together as for some recommendations for the city. And, so I felt good to be a part of that process and explaining to her that it needs to be easy. We need that streamlined function. I don't like writing manual checks. I mean, just writing the checks and balancing the, getting all the checks in and putting them in the bank and the whole thing is 3 weeks. That's a lot of time to lose a couple of employees. So it'll be cool if, and implementation, 18 months.
Probably, we're targeting, I believe right now, stock would be somewhere around. January of 27, if not, may have to get pushed out to July, but yeah, that would be where we're targeting.
It'd be cool for you guys if everything can be done at once, have one date.
That's what we're gonna try, but we don't, again, we're just in the fact finding mission. Right?
Yeah. Thank you for including me.
So anything else you would like to see us? There's for instance, on the staffing thing, we can move that forward during the budget process and have another discussion for the budget process with regards to that.
So you say for part-time, how many hours are you thinking?
I would think halftime, so halftime, yeah. Yeah. We'll see again, we haven't formed a job description or anything like that yet, so we would see if would be interested.
Do you happen to know the suggestion of downtown beautification and the work the Seaside does for their problem improvements? And then Coupe looks at paint, basket bar, decoration, et cetera. Do you know what the extent of beautification can be stretched out to? Like what is like a partial funding of varying utility funds to make it look pretty downtown? Like where does beautification end? And
I think it would, and again, as we would get closer to that, I would think that if we were looking at developing that program, we'd want to go to legal. I would think that it would be more geared towards something that is going to attract You know, like people come down to a Christmas village or something like that, that's what I would see, but. I would definitely float if I could bury power lines.
It's a good question.
It's, not like making sort of weird people arguments at this point, but that sort of thing, but that would be an optional expense, it's not something mandatory, that be considered. Tourism improvements,
Well, you
or
know,
is that not considered, cause
the prom in general, probably anything on the prom. Seems like would probably qualify, but they're obviously using it for lighting, street lighting.
Mhm.
You know, they've got the whole seaside trademark street lamp, but, you know, they're not only on the prom, but they're on holiday, so, but I'd be curious, same question, whether that crosses over. So-
yeah, where that line goes from beautification to just paying for utility stuff, right, it's not qualified in restricted use.
And if they change the mix of the percentages, then. You could always backfill or put it in the general fund and then use general fund money to cover that.
Would it cover, repairing the public parking lots? The C curbs and things in there?
Probably some of it. But
I think all of it could.
I kind of agree. I mean. We could definitely make that argument. I think that argument could be made that that's.
To improve real property with the purpose of
Yeah,
accommodating
maybe
tourist
5%, you know, used for. Those of us who live here that have, you know, most people that need to park there are. Only here for a limited time every day.
Well, I think these recommendations are good.
okay,
I kind of question, develop other grant programs. You know, is downtown beautification gonna be a grant program? Is, are Parks and Trails gonna be a grant program? Or are
Just something we did.
yeah, add budget money that is required to be used, you know, and satisfy law at the same time, but, so I only question the word grant in all of that.
when I was thinking grant, for instance, I guess what was in my head was that maybe the Parks Committee is looking to update all the signage on the trails. And then they would come to TAP to get the funding. So that was kind of what I was thinking when it was grants, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be just that we have money available.
There's,
Or would it come through the staff person? Yeah.
Right.
yeah, figuring that out. There's something that, someone in town has been doing, a couple people in town have been doing the last couple summers. I'm sorry. That have been done the last couple summers, and that's the movies in the park. And I think that it's been paid for primarily by the businesses. I think it's been a business sponsorship and they've gotten a permit to use the bandstand. But is that something that could be considered for TAP grant money? Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah.
We're also talking about expanding music into the winter and having it in this room. Working with, Paul and the, chamber. Because, you know, in summer, and cut it off. It'd be more of a local thing, 'cause it was here. But, it's just something else that we're looking to use the TAP fund.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks, Jen.
Great.
Do you have enough direction?
I do believe I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
May we too?
Okay, yeah, quick break. Sorry. We're back in session, and the next item is the Lake Coast Park and Park Element Design and Construction Services. Bruce?
Yes, I need some idea from the council. We can go through, we have both contracts here, we have a contract, it's redlined, and then a regular contract. And then there's also some information about CNGC. But, so we can either go straight to the contracts, or if you'd like, I can give a 3 to 5 minute presentation on the principles of CNGC. I just didn't want to go ahead and get into that without, if you all let me.
Do we need that? If you don't,
I think we had a pretty hefty discussion of that,
got a few.
a couple times.
Yeah, I think we're okay with.
Okay, and then, so if you want, we can just go to whatever sections of the contracts, or else you can go ahead and, head into our conversation.
I have two questions. One was a section of the contract, and one was just a general comment on it. I'll start, section of the contract, section 3.1 in the contract. The scope of work. I believe the question was asked, I don't remember what the answer was, so I figured I'd ask it again. So section 3.1, just on one page over there, services provided by the city. One of them geotechnical, the first one, we don't have a geotechnical engineer on staff, but we have geotechnical reports already done for the site. Is that my understanding? Is that what's?
I don't know if we've actually done the geotech reports, but these 4 disciplines are usually hired by the owner.
Okay. All right.
I believe we've gone through a lot of this, so we're pretty far along.
That was my understanding. We had those reports. So the reports that were, whatever reports exist, we own, correct?
Yes.
And Eric, I just wanted to point out that we do have an on-call contract with the geotech. Our old one, retired, and we have engaged in another geotechnical firm, so we have them available for the project.
Thanks. And then.
Thanks.
The other question I had was not on the contract, or might be on contract execution, but, it was the concern I had kind of thought about, or it's not, it might be close to the top. I didn't write down what page it was on. Like I said, it's more of a comment of the process as a whole. It was a concern I brought up, where I thought about, I mean, I brought it up in one thing, but a couple of people in the community brought it up to me of, are we gonna end up in the similar situation from the previous iteration if we have the same, maybe if it's the same individuals or the same specific selection committee, type of selection committee for the architect? This project is the last project, or are we gonna end up in the same boat? We have different parameters set, and we have a maximum budget set on this, we have some additional things that are set in this contract, in this potential RFP that goes out. But in that selection process, are we gonna end up selecting something that doesn't? That puts us in the same situation where there's a large portion of the community that doesn't agree with the vision of the visions that were presented to council.
This process is geared towards, competition. At every point. And so there's a competition, if you want to call it that, where people just review the materials. And suppose we get 6 proposals. They review the materials, they go through, everybody rates it on their own. And then the moderator takes that information, goes ahead and determines who the top 3 or 4 are. And then the group decides, well, you know, for me, between 3 and 4 was a very small amount, I would like to review 4. If everybody agrees, you can go for 4. Then you call those people in for interviews. And then you have the same kind of a criteria sheet that you're evaluating each one of them on. And then when you get done, and suppose you have 5 people that are evaluating, and they're evaluating 3 different groups. When you get done, that number is the one that is what you're supposed to go to for initial negotiations.
Okay.
So you kind of get guided that way with this, because that's the way it's supposed to work out. I always felt in Florida, this was set up by the biggest firms, because they tend to win. But, so it's a little hard to go ahead and say, well, I gave this one 25, I gave this one 23, but the one I gave 23 is local, so I'm gonna nominate them. It's not, that's not how the process generally goes.
Is there points awarded for distance from here, so, like, whatever scale is 10 points if you're within the county, 5 points if you're in the state,
I
2
can,
points if you're outside the state, like, is there a point value associated with how?
I can check on that, and but you would need to be able to say the reason. I think that distance from the site is 10 points is this. But if somebody is willing to drive from Lake Oswego and they say, I'll be here every day, I don't know if you can justify that particular point system, but you can check on it.
So, were you questioning about the selection, I mean, can you give an idea of how it could be different that?
I don't know how to improve it or how to make it different, that was just something, somebody asked me like, well, it's gonna be the same style of selection committee, aren't you gonna end up with the same architect, or aren't you gonna end up with the same process? And
I think that
I had that concern.
I don't think the problem with the, previous selection by the selection committee had to do with the process of selecting them or the actual firm itself. I just think that, some people thought the design was too, lavish for this town, that's all. I don't think it's anything to do with the quality of the design team or the quality of of CETA or anything. I think, you know, if they could have easily designed something smaller.
Okay, I just wanted to flip that idea about the selection committee.
I think having the established high amount.
Mhm. I think that's a huge bonus to this
I think
project.
that's the whole.
Yeah.
I know.
Pretty much all.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just wanted to float that, that was one of them if I had.
I had a couple people come to me as well about making sure that there are different people sitting on those committees. So it feels different.
Well, do they know who was sitting on the old committee and they didn't think they were capable of making?
I don't think.
I don't know.
I haven't really seen it.
Yeah, there was a list out there at one point. Who was on those committees?
I don't think we need to get into individual names.
Well, and that's fine.
I think it might be important, because these are some good people, you know, Barb Knott, David
Oh.
Benita, Jeff Adams,
There we go.
Darren Devontae, and Rusty Barrett were on the architectural for Canyon Beach Elementary. And it was, Barb Knott again, me, Jason Schermerhorn, Jeff Adams, Rusty, and Trevor Mount for the architect for the police station. So.
So that was staff members. Were there any citizens involved?
Yes,
Well, Barb, I guess
yes,
you're
yeah,
a citizen.
I think so.
I hope so. Okay,
and,
So-
yeah.
but anyway, some of those people don't work for the city anymore, right? Maybe a couple people, but I mean, it was brought up as, you know, maybe we try and do it a little bit different this time, so we have a little more diversity.
Mhm.
Maybe
Is there
more
a-
citizens, maybe a couple more citizens.
I was gonna ask, is there like a request for volunteer form? Like, for qualifications or something like how we have the committees?
No, I think that they're just chosen.
No, I mean, like, would that be an idea to go
Yeah,
for this
well,
selection?
Yeah, I mean, find people who are interested, just like we select, yeah, like you said, like this.
Yeah.
Committees, then you get, it's much more transparent and you get a bigger cross-section of people applying. You know, you don't have to make it such a giant committee that it's, you know, you can't operate, but I mean, just for 2 or 3 citizen people on it. It'd be nice to, you know, have a choice based on qualifications or familiarity with, you know.
I'd like to make a comment on the selection process is that, whoever you select is in for a lot of work. And so they gotta be willing to put in that kind of time to review
Right.
each proposal, something like this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you gotta fill in the points and all that kind of stuff, so it took a lot of time, and so you make sure they've got that kind of time.
Yeah,
And
you
I
have to
think
make
that,
that clear in
Mhm.
asking for
Right,
citizen involvement. You know, they'd have to be willing to contribute this many hours per week or per month or whatever, you know,
But this,
otherwise don't apply.
this is just selection of the designer.
Right,
And from there, there's a lot of public
There's a lot of
input through the whole
right.
process and, you know, a lot of us approving and moving forward of
Mhm.
designs, so.
I think Lisa, the best word I think you used is transparency. I think that that's what people have come to me asking for,
Right.
instead of just an appointed committee, there's actually a
they feel
selection.
like it's a cabal making the decision. You know, I mean, that's kind of dramatic, but that, I heard that too, so.
you know, you got two committees, you got the one for the contractor also.
So other things with the contract?
I have a question about, section 2. Fourth paragraph, 2.1. I really like the description, the city desires the site to become a park with parking, restrooms, interpretive trail, restored landscape, public food pantry, and possibly semi-enclosed structures such as picnic shelters. I think that really kind of defines the general things that we're looking at. But then it does go on to say, the food pantry is currently housed in a structure located in the parking lot of the property, with the city's intent being to temporarily relocate them inside the school. So that's a little bit different now, until a new location can be planned. The selection firm will be expected to find and design a new permanent home for the food pantry, preferably on the existing site. So now are we using the tourism dollars to find and design the new home for the food pantry?
The food pantry has its own funding, we probably need to supplement it some, but it's general fund funding.
And that was my concern, because I knew we had
Yeah,
funds, or are we going to deplete part of the tourism funds that we want for the park? So I don't know if any of that.
I had the same question, I feel right there, same sort of thing, are we, is the food pantry portion part of the same budget as the,
No, because senators, they have its own money.
well, but this request says that it is.
yeah, I think that if you're gonna have a contractor on site, then it makes sense, if you're gonna remove that building, that they are the ones that hire the contractor that does it.
I think people are thinking that possibly you're taking that 6.5 million and out the cost of building a new food pantry be coming out of that. And I
Right.
think that, obviously, I don't think that's what you.
No, it's not what we're talking about.
Yeah,
It doesn't say build it, but it does say the design of it. So.
Well, it would
You
need
want
to
to
be
design
designed to
corporate.
fit in.
yeah, you want it incorporated into.
Yeah.
Not just a totally separate thing.
Yeah, even if it's just, this is where it's gonna be on the design,
Right.
but
I think it's a
so,
little bit more than that.
well,
But anyway, so this contract is saying that, we're going to design the food pantry within that budget.
Yeah, and some of this was done and completed when we shipped this out to you, and a lot of things have been happening with the food pantry in the meantime, so when you go through this, make sure it says what you want it to say. Because, things have changed.
Well, I'd like the design of the food pantry to be incorporated into the park as part of the budget, but not the cost of building the food pantry, not the cost of, you know, whatever we bring in there.
Mhm.
I don't think that should be, that should be paid for from the general fund.
But these are all TLT dollars, right?
Wait,
Uh-huh.
Currently,
Yeah.
we can supplement easy enough with the current job fund.
And just a question for Claire, so who? This might be the wrong conversation, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway. The food pantry is being paid for, the new food pantry is being paid for by who?
City.
And then a new lease will be renegotiated.
Mhm. Well, what happened, I think, is that the city, or the school board, there was a building, the use of it to the, food pantry, city took it over, we let them stay. So I think if there's the possibility of making any changes that you wanna make, somehow we need to make sure that all the parts have a home at the end.
Mhm.
I'd also suggest that we take the building down relatively quickly, because there's really no value left in it. And there's an incredible view to the west that has been blocked ever since that building has been there. There's a grove there, there's the ocean. It's probably worth it to get everybody's creativity going to get that, knocked out of the way. And then something the city can do and take that responsibility out of this scope. Or even if it's in the scope, when they first send it out, we could say that's no longer in the scope. But I think that might be worth it, just because it's my favorite view of it.
Oh, I think that's a great idea, Bruce.
But the scope is describing $6.5 million, and it includes. Does it exclude somehow? The construction? It might include all the, whatever we have for covered areas for the park, but does it then exclude the construction of the food pantry? And is that clear to the designer?
So maybe make it clearer in this contract that the cost of constructing a new food pantry is not included in the 6.5 million. Can we do
That's
that?
my concern, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we can do that. I just want a little bit of time to think about, do we want to make the responsibility for moving in, if we're gonna move in a trailer or whatever we're gonna do to the classrooms, however that gets worked out. Do we want the contractor to be responsible for that, or we can split out, paint the money that's spent and then keep it in the general fund? That makes sense?
No.
Let me try again.
Yeah.
You can have a contractor. And you can do whatever you would like them to do, and if it's removing that building, for example, or placing. Or placing or building, whatever you want for the food pantry, you can put that in. You can also take it out after. But whatever happens with the food pantry, in my mind, and I think it's what the direction that you're providing, is it comes from the general fund. The general fund does have some funds for that.
This looks like the way this is written, it looks like it comes out of the 6.
No, this paragraph probably needs a lot of modification.
Okay, so we can modify that to
Yes.
make it clear that, that the construction of the food pantry, comes from a separate budget. Not the 6.5 million budget of the project. I think that's where we're all trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The construct.
Can I ask a
Sure.
clarification question?
Yeah.
That sounds fine to me. I just want to make sure we're still okay with the cost of the design. Being part of this, whatever contract flows out of this RFP, the design team will still be, designing the food pantry location wherever it is, and that cost is going to be part of this contract. Does that
That's
make
what
sense?
I got, the design part.
But then if we're gonna do that, that's fine, but we need to have an absolute budget for the food pantry.
Out of the 6.5.
No,
No, for,
but there needs to be an absolute budget for the food pantry.
There's about $500,000 now. And it can be supplemented.
Well, it can be, I just, and I am absolutely a proponent for the food pantry. Absolutely, but I'm having a hard time with the city paying for a building for the food pantry, paying for all of it.
Why?
I don't know why. I don't know why, but I'm just, I mean, we're, you know, what, that's why, what's the lease gonna look like in a renegotiation? I mean, $1 a year that's what it is now, I think. I don't know, that's how I feel in the moment. I'm sure my mind can probably be changed or altered in some way, but,
Rugs. No, just kidding, altered.
drugs. If I'm following home.
I think I can understand hesitation wanting to put a cap limit, whatever it is in terms of construction costs. I think I can understand the thought process that had occurred to me when you were saying that is we have a dozen other nonprofits in town that are providing different services one way or the other that aren't getting the special treatment of getting a new building from the city sort of conversation. I'm not, again, same thing as doing not at all, we shouldn't be doing this. I'm just reminding us that there are other nonprofits in the community that aren't getting a new building from the city.
Well, because they're not in the same situation as the other nonprofits, but
Sure.
the other thing, I guess, the idea of having a cap on how much out of the general fund we're willing to spend on a new food bank building, there's no problem with having a cap on it, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but I have no objection to putting a cap on the amount we're going to spend.
Would it be helpful for the designer who's responding to this to have a square footage that we're recommending for the food pantry? And I don't know if
What is it now, about 2,000?
Yeah.
21, right?
1971.
yeah, I don't know. The
Well-
fear of that budget might, you know, that we might try to design the Taj Mahal for the food pantry, but.
Well, that's why I think it's important that we have a budget for it.
Well, we can ask the design team, I'm sorry, that's a visual that I'm not gonna be able to let go of. But we can ask the design team to do, and we can put it in here and we'll probably, if we put it in here, we'll put it in the contract as well. Is, a separate cost estimate for the food pantry construction so that we know what we're looking at. In terms of cost and so we can start planning financially for that construction piece. So that can be a specific component of the requirements for the design team. So that before we get to construction, you know how much it's gonna cost, how much is gonna be required from the city and so on and so forth. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, good, okay. Okay, other things?
My only other thought, is just the first paragraph of the invitation of the request for proposals. The paragraph, city's intended use of the property upon redevelopment is to primarily serve as a city park and secondarily as a space for community-related events. I kind of get what that means, what we're talking about, community-related events, that maybe a street fair kind of thing.
Or farmers market or.
Exactly, yeah. Is that clear enough for the designer, or is it spelled out enough later that I just don't need to worry about it?
I think it's.
There don't nobody with where we found that
Right, page 3. At the invitation, I think it's back this way, it's at the very beginning, yes,
Right, thank you.
yeah.
Page 3.
The invitation, what goes in the newspaper? Pardon? The invitation, what goes in the newspaper? And so that goes in the newspaper to try to draw people's attention, and then the actual RFP is pretty much the rest of it.
And then I don't know if that description should be better stated in the paragraph that we were just looking at. When, instead of just, possibly semi-enclosed structures such as a picnic shelter, I don't know, and.
Well, I'm not following Gary.
I wanna make sure the designer knows that we're looking for space. What kind of space we're looking for potential, community gather.
But we listed them all out later on, about what we would like to see included.
Mm-hmm, so
Where is
this
that?
is just a brief
We're
synopsis.
in
of
the
what we're
paragraph you
looking for.
referred to where we talked about picnic shelters. It's spelled out in that paragraph.
But a picnic shelter could be a roof over a picnic table.
It could be,
But
depends
this,
on what the budget allows and what they design.
Yeah, I think maybe your question about the space for community related events, I think I might be looking too deep in the weeds at this point, I think.
Yeah.
I think that potentially gives the applicant an idea of like, okay, this is not just a park with some swings, they want something more than that, and then when we get to the face-to-face with an architect, that's when that sort of discussion comes out, and this is the ideas that we're thinking.
Okay, I mean, if that's the way the process works, then
it's gonna be like this big, this part is gonna be like this big, and it's an invitation for them to go look at the RFP, then they go look at all the rest of the stuff.
And all the
And
things.
Gary,
you'd like
it's,
to
it's
see.
it's in the business term. This is what
Okay.
people look for to find.
all right,
And then everything else they would see.
The one thing the one thing on that paragraph though that is confusing to me is and several classrooms.
What?
Yeah, the text they've got added, that sentence doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-mm.
Slow down. The bold underline there.
Oh.
Is it almost assistance relocating? Parking lot and several classrooms, and that makes it sound like the classrooms are being relocated. Which they're actually being,
Yeah, that's just not artfully written, I think, just needs to be
Yeah.
written. To make it clear, what,
mhm,
it sounds, yeah, it's hard to tell what,
yeah,
we know, but, you know.
How about currently located in a structure in the parking lot?
Well, I mean, it's not in the parking lot anymore, it's,
We don't even have to say that, we could just
I think
say,
it's the
relocate.
refrigerator trucks.
Do we have to even say that? I mean, we can say where it is now,
no, I think we
we just
just
take that out.
take from which, from the word, from the comma, from which, all the way across could just be taken out,
I think so too.
yeah.
Or which is located on site.
Or, yeah, which is, that's even
On the
better,
site.
that's even better.
Yeah.
Just take out the several classrooms.
No, which is
Change it
located
to
on
which is
site.
located on site.
To get rid of in the parking lot, because we have some classrooms replacing it, the
From there over out and then.
phrase on site.
Mhm.
Good. Good one,
But
Eric.
it needs to be clear that it's gonna remain at that site.
It is clear in the section
Right.
2.1, that's the intention.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
I think so. I don't think they have any rooms. Oh, I did, no, something, something.
Nothing else?
no,
Okay,
So I do.
sorry, your time is up.
Marching orders for moving forward, we have the changes you guys just discussed, but we did not decide on a selection committee, so that's something you wanna talk about in the March meeting? Or do you wanna determine who's on the selection committee now, or are we gonna do the process that we advertise it? But then does that go to council, the council chooses on it? So how are we gonna finalize that, Luke?
And then the other one I wanted to talk about is, you guys talked about the selection criteria, that's in section 5. Do we need to make adjustments to this? Because this will come back in March for finalization. So if we do want to make some adjustments to section 5. And it's like 5.4.1 where it starts talking about how many points and everything.
What do you think, 6 members makes sense? Six members, do you think that's a good number?
That's what we.
Should it be an odd number?
Should we not refer to them?
It doesn't, it doesn't need to be because it's coming up on the total points
Right.
that everybody's getting. But it's something that the council wishes to appoint yourself, it's just a lot of work.
Well, I think that we need to have, for transparency, I think we should have a selection. I think we should put the information out there.
Right, we have an application process.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that would be good.
For the community members that wanna be involved.
So is it just an application that says, do you want to be involved in this process? And do we want to ask the question, like, why do you want to be involved, or do I just get a list of names and
Why, it's a good question.
Why, I think there needs to be something about the time.
A disclaimer.
time?
Yeah.
And just make my day to be there qualified. So it's like-
About it.
So would it just be something that, we can work with Barb on finalizing the language or draft and then bring to you guys on the March 3rd one, because that doesn't have to be done right away, but we still want to make sure you have enough time to get into, because we'll be working on the schedule as well. So we'll do a draft application with Barb, bring it to the March 3rd meeting, that you guys can review at the same time as the final RFP.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, the only last one is if you guys wanted to change anything of the actual, section 5, if you want to keep moving, that could be something that you email me your suggestions and we can incorporate them, and then you guys can decide on the 3rd if you want to keep them. So that way we can keep the meeting going tonight.
That sounds like a great idea.
I think so too.
Everybody okay with that?
We're talking about scoring?
Yeah, if you guys wanted to add something, because you're talking about the locality of people, and that's not currently in the scoring criteria. So if you wanted
Yeah, 4.5, yeah, 5.4.1.
And the idea is behind that is. What is the idea behind that?
And try to encourage using local people, which I guess that's just a matter of opinion. Would you rather have the best person or local person?
And I'm not sure how many people would actually.
Yes. I mean, you know,
Yes, I see.
Right.
I
I think
think
it's-
the best person.
I hope we have a lot of community working on this and planting and have, having input and the actual interpretive trail. But, it's probably unrealistic to expect that a local designer.
Has course experience, which is separate from every other kind. Cause you've designed a house or a school or a convention center, doesn't mean you design a park. So I think the local, they maybe when you're talking about contractors.
Yeah, there, I think that's
Right,
where,
not local contractors, but for a designer, I'd rather have the best designer. As long as they're willing to come and not charging more in travel, then. You know, that would be to me, the main criteria would be the best.
If I may, The only thing that I recommend, council be careful of is there's statutory restrictions on applying preferences. So, we'll just have to make sure that if there is a preference applied, we have to make sure that we're not running afoul of statutes. Just a note.
So I think for this type of, design, I think we should not give points for where you're from. Just because I don't think we have that I'm aware of, that we would have anybody that would qualify.
We might.
But,
We might.
and then,
Then they'll get chosen.
right, but to give them points. I think we're spending a lot of time on something that probably isn't gonna come about. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Not close, but no, I need a little bit more direction to know what we do for the next step, so I'm good now.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you all very much. Next, we're on to e-bike rental regulations. Bruce?
Yes, Madam Mayor. At the January 6th meeting, council reviewed proposed revisions to the city's e-bike regulations. Below is an overview of the revisions or clarifications requested during that January meeting. Section 10.12.010A removed the word sidewalk. Language has been added to the definition of emerging mobility device to clarify that the code does not include motorized vehicles when operated by a person with an ambulatory disability as defined by ORS 801-120. Did I get that right? No? Okay, council cannot prohibit rented e-bikes from being taken on the beach.
So does anybody have any comments on the draft?
I hate to make another comment that wasn't already brought up, but, I'm curious about, my impression of going forward with something like this is, essentially mandating it to be, brick and mortar stores only, a local operator kind of thing, not Lives or, Lime or Bird leaving those random scooters and bikes all over the place. That was kind of what my criteria and suggested, because that we weren't gonna end up with something ridiculous like that going on with all that like extra riches, but I feel like it might be worth adding in 10.12.027. Where it lists the restriction of rental of e-bikes, and B, adding the sentence, so long as the rental is executed within a business registered with the city of Caney Beach. So the keyword being within a business, so it's, I know outdoor merchandising is currently prohibited, but this adds an additional layer of, it has to be within a business, so the rental is executed. on that.
Yep, that's great.
And then, I got a comment from someone in the public that asked if it's worth exploring, limits on total number of rental places or total number of rental bikes that the place is allowed to rent, some one or the other or both. So that we know we're not potentially, if we're afraid of this exploding through a giant boom, I'm personally not that terrified of it exploding through a giant boom, but if there's a concern that there some place in here, we put a limit. If we desire it, I don't
know, can we do that?
if they're separately licensed or something, maybe, I don't know. I guess they're not separately
Well,
licensed.
I'm very legally.
Was that directed to me? I didn't hear. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So you wanna put a
I-
limitation, sorry, counselor. You wanna put a limitation on the number of businesses that are able to rent this out, or the number of e-bikes that a business can rent?
I don't have a concern with either of those. It was just a question. If that either one of those is a possibility and if council is concerned and thinks that one of those needs to be applied if legal.
Even if maybe we could put a limit on the number of e-bikes that were able to be rented until we can reassess what that's gonna look like. But I agree with you that I don't think it's gonna be this mass explosion of thousands of bikes, but.
I think, I'm gonna say this without knowing for sure, without having researched it, but I don't see anything wrong with limiting the number of bikes that a business can rent. I don't know if we can necessarily limit the type, the number of actual bike rental businesses. That gives me a little bit more heartburn, but the limitation to just how many you can rent out, I don't think that's a problem. But if it is, I'll let you know.
And like I said, I don't have a particular heartburn over it. I just, somebody from the community suggested that if there is consternation about it, that maybe that would be an option.
Yeah.
I don't see it being,
I've heard people concerned about it, so.
And that way, if it was a smaller number and then we could assess what's really going on.
Right.
But we can't prohibit them from being on the beach.
Right now.
Yeah.
I think Eric already brought this up, but I think, is it possible, Jody, to limit this to bricks and mortar stores? Like, I mean, I could picture some guy with a trailer pulling up at Tolovana.
didn't
Well,
we do
and
that?
that's what I was hoping, the
Yeah.
language that I wanted to add to,
Yeah.
027 B, so long as the rental is executed within a business registered with the city of Cannon Beach.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, pulling up a trailer, you're renting bikes out of that would be like having a food cart. Except through renting bikes instead of selling, selling bike rentals instead of food, so I don't think you can do that anyway. Right? Right.
I don't know what's under your business license requirements currently. It's just not fresh in my brain, but if your licensing requirements require some sort of local address, then that would take care of itself. I don't know if Tim's in the room, if he might know off the top of his head, but I don't want to put him on the spot. I think that requiring a business license is a good idea. And I think it's an easy addition to 12, whatever number that was. I don't know how we could, without incorporating, unless we just want to incorporate a local address requirement. I don't want to get into sort of like design requirements for a structure. Like you need to own certain size of a building. Like that's, we're getting into land use stuff and I don't want to even touch that with a 10-foot pole. But I get the point.
Is there way,
So if we don't have heartburn about, or do we have heartburn about numbers?
Well, I think I have heard about numbers. So how many would you? I don't know. Yeah. I have
25.
Oh. Now I got her.
5, she says 5.
I was thinking 6.
Those bikes are not small, they're kind of cumbersome.
Yeah.
So anybody that's gonna be able to have one in town. Within, I mean, the bike rental business, Ian's business, for example, he doesn't have a ton of space.
Right.
So maybe 10.
If you're hit by one, you could do a huge amount of damage too.
And then he could come back and. I don't know. And say, hey, I mean, if we don't have Chief Schultz coming up saying, hey, all of our emergency stuff, which is ticketing e-bikes. Then, maybe we look at it again in a year and before the next season.
So wait and see.
But maybe 10, you think? I know you don't like that number, but I think that he would ask for more.
Start there. Yeah, I think that's, I like that,
Okay, let's put 10 bikes in the ordinance.
Okay.
to start with. You know,
Yeah.
change it.
So no business may have more than 10 e-bikes in the rental service. That means,
All the time.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'll work with Jody.
Okay.
Originally I had this scheduled to come back with the ordinance, but I chose mine, because March is really packed anyways. If you can come back with the language one more time, for you guys to review it, and then we'll do the ordinance, because we'd like to get everything fine.
Okay.
I wasn't done yet.
Oh, man.
Gary has more, but wait, there's more.
Actually, I talked to Ian today and he had a concern. And that's under, definitions, the top of attachment A. The e-bike definition, 2. Is equipped with an electric motor that A has power output of not more than 1,000 watts. And B is incapable of propelling an electronic assisted bicycle at a speed of greater than 20 miles per hour on level ground. Ian was concerned that, I mean, and it seems to me like only B is necessary. That there's not a control over what kind of motor that manufacturers put in their bikes, but the important thing is that it's not capable of going greater than 20 miles an hour. And that, there may be some bikes that are designed to carry a load that have greater capacity. But I mean, the important thing in it is that it can't go faster than 20 miles an hour, so I'm not sure what size or really.
I think that language may have come straight from the state's definition, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a state's definition?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can understand the concern, because you get like a fat tire bike that's a haul bike or something, doesn't go very fast, the speed is really low, but may have a 2,000 watt motor or
We-
1,500 watt motor.
We have one, we have the wagon,
Oh, yeah,
and it has a bigger,
yeah.
But it's
It's
a haul.
differently, yeah.
it goes slow.
So do we wanna put that restriction
They're just.
on there because the state does, or? Does it really, is it probably accomplishing what we want to just by? Having bikes that are limited to 20 miles an hour.
I think that accomplishes the goal.
That's what I'm concerned, yeah, that would be my concern, it's how fast. I don't care about the motor, I didn't even know what it was anyway. I don't even remember, no.
So I mean, really just striking everything on A. E-bike means, equipped with an electric motor. That is incapable of propelling the electronic assisted bicycle at a speed of greater than 20 miles an hour. So there's some kind of limit, on them. Some kind of governor, I don't know how it works, but.
Yeah, everybody okay with that? And do you have more?
That's it.
That's it, okay. Got it?
Got
Okay. We're moving on. Going 1,000 miles an hour now.
Yeah, we're really long.
Yeah, okay, next, on the last discussion item, we have department restructuring.
This was requested by Commissioner Boshander.
Yeah, I didn't know this was gonna be on the agenda, otherwise I would have submitted some materials, but, generally the reason I suggested, this for the, I think, retreat and then that is, Bruce was present for part of that discussion, the retreat side, so the discussion needs to involve the city manager anyways. Is I kind of see that we might be doing the disservice to some of our departments or some of our programs by not having a department head over something like natural resources. So somebody, right now we expect our public works director, which Pat Norman and Carolyn, they do a great job of doing it, being over parks and dealing with the Eagle Forest Reserve and they don't do that, but dealing with the recycling center. So like those three things are a different skill set and different knowledge base than, for the most part, than the water, streets and sewer. Like you've got project management of those things, project management in a lot of cases, but having some of that intimate knowledge of things within the Eagle Forest Reserve, things about parks and trails. I thought it would behoove us, in the community to essentially have a natural resources department that has, the HVAC program would be within that, the parks department or the parks program, parks and trails would be within that. The Eagle Forest Reserve would be managed by the natural resources director. Potentially the recycling center, the natural resources thing would be there, and then that way it lightens the burden of the public works director, that they don't have to think of the dealing with parks as part of splitting staff and stuff like that. Let allows public works director to focus more on public works and then not have to try to split the skill set of somebody who may not have a lot of natural resource experience behind them, or trying, when you're hiring for public works director, trying to get somebody who can fill all those things. That's kind of what I was thinking with that, and then potentially part of the wages for that director position, being that they would be, in my mind, being over park and recreation and HVAC, some portion of theirs, back to our second discussion item of the evening, restricted TLT funds, some of their compensation would be covered from restricted TLT funds, as they would be department head over HVAC and parks. Parks and recreation is something that could be partially funded, parks and trails with restricted TLT funds. So that's fine. That's really all I had. I would have prepared more stuff if I had known this was coming up on the agenda, but.
I'm sorry, I thought you were ready for it.
No, tonight I'm ready for it, but I maybe before the agenda was posted, I wasn't aware that it was gonna be on, but yeah, so that's my pitch.
It's a little much for me to try to head around tonight, actually, but I wonder if Chris has thoughts about, would that cause any issue with Public Works not being involved in those areas?
Yeah, I think it's a little early to say potentially, like the idea is kind of as presented. I think there's lots of things there, right? In terms of, giving up certain departments that have been under the watch of Public Works, so there would need to be obviously a larger conversation and get into the specifics of what that would all entail. So without seeing exactly like an overall concept of what that looks like.
Some of that makes sense to me, but I'm having a hard time like, okay, well, what do we do with this? And
Well, my thought was just trying to streamline and lighten the public work director's load from certain things while putting some of those things under a potential future director that has a specific background in like natural resources or parks management or something like that. And has an education background in that sort of thing.
The HVAC is not under public works.
No, they're not, that's what I was suggesting, putting HVAC under this new director, because it's a program, it's not a department, so putting that, and so they would essentially have 3 programs with them, or recycling and board, but they're the 3 parts, HVAC and Eagle Forest Reserve.
So I would think that this is not gonna happen in this next budget.
No, I wanted that's what I wanted to do at the retreat, is just open the discussion, and
Yeah.
again, that's where.
Yeah. So
I don't know when to start that discussion, or now I've started it and can think about it.
Yeah, I think
Consider, but-
there's a lot to think about with that. And, so I think we should continue to think and discuss it and analyze whether or not.
And what it could look like, so
What it could look like, what it could look like, and what Chris's job could look like, the public works director's job would look like without bearing the burden of those, departments. We've still got a lot of big projects.
And I just think it works great how we have it. I'm not sure I wanna make a change.
Sometimes change is good though.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you
Sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
take parks,
I'm not really sure that this is even an issue. Well, I
parks,
know that-
maintenance and all that out of the purview of public works. I
Yeah.
struggle with it a little bit.
Right.
But I do like the idea of, someone with, natural resources being involved. But I don't know, like I said, it's just a lot for me to think about right now.
I know that the parks had suffered with all the projects we've had going on.
What was the first part of that?
The parks have suffered
And,
in ways, a lot of the things that the people, that the landscapers and things do, not under you, Chris, this is just a general statement, but I really think that it would be interesting to hear from you, Chris, what you think that, the pros and cons.
but let's give them.
When you have
a chance.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect.
That's when you have
I don't
time.
have much to evaluate.
Come on.
Right now, I think they.
No.
Yes. Yeah. So this is something that we're not gonna solve tonight.
Yeah, my head's gonna explode.
Yeah.
We'll table it for a certain amount of time and.
Yeah. Let's let Chris be on the job.
He'll have some experience on the job, to
Yeah.
see if there's. an
Right.
issue.
Yeah. Very okay with that?
yeah,
Okay.
like I said, I didn't know that it's been added or.
Yeah.
And it's not anyways.
Okay, so now we're gonna close the work session and open the special meeting. And first on the agenda is ordinance 2601 to amend the municipal code chapter 82008 burning. Bruce?
Yes, the 7/16/2025 meeting, council adopted 2601, amending the Burning Municipal Code. Preparation for implementation, 2 errors were discovered during section 8.08.010. And it's just some words. Clean wood under the definition of household waste should be deleted. And the word mean should be changed to meet in section C. So, is there anything else? Where was it?
I think there was the, clarification that it was up in the recitals that, and trying to remember, do you remember, Jim, what we can't remember the law.
I thought it was just those two. so-
Yeah.
It wasn't anything in the text, it's definitely whereas well.
So,
We just wanted to make sure everyone, I know what it was. It was the, that it goes with the property. It's not, so if you're doing a short-term rental permit, you can't come on the weekends and do a fire pit burn. If you have a short-term rental permit, it runs with the property. We can't police who's there and not their owner or, renter.
and that's in the other language of the ordinance, that I think what you were asking for is clarity and awareness, right?
Right.
Okay. So how about we change it to, ban recreational fires for short-term rental permit holders?
That would do.
Yeah, I believe, we thought the language was fine in the actual ordinance. We just wanted to verify that you guys were on that same understanding of the rule.
Yeah.
That's really more than.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
So you're not proposing anything to change, you just wanted to make sure that the clarity was out there.
Yeah, that's how we read that.
Alright.
Everybody clear with that?
Yeah,
Okay. So you would like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2601.
second,
Okay, ordinance 2601 and ordinance amending Cannon Beach Municipal Code, chapter 8.08 burning, setting the effective date of May 1st, 2026. Roll call for the first reading?
Counselor Hay,
Yes.
Council President Kirk,
Yeah.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
yes,
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
I'll move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 2601.
Second.
Ordinance 2601 and ordinance amending Cannon Beach Municipal Code, chapter 8.08 burning, setting the effective date on May 1st, 2026. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Council President Kirk,
Yeah.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
yes,
Counselor Hay,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Okay, ordinance number 2.01 has been adopted and will become effective May 1st, 2026. Thank you, everyone. Okay, then, next on the agenda, we have findings of fact. Finally.
Sat here all night for this.
Come on up.
I got a little work done. So, we. At the last meeting, come to in a matter of an appeal of a planning commission decision to deny an off-street parking variance request for variant 2504 regarding off-street parking requirements for a limited commercial C1 zoning application at 280 North Hemlock Street, tax lot 51019 DD 1602. You had come to your decision. We drafted the findings of fact, conclusions, and order number. You asked for that to be brought back before you, and just brought put those in your packet, and Missy's approved these, and so if you have any questions or any edits that need to be made.
Anything from anyone?
I move to approve the findings of fact and conclusion of law for appeal 2601.
Second,
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Counselor Hammond,
yes,
Counselor Hay,
Yes.
Council President Kirk,
yeah,
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
all that for that.
That's it, that's how I like it.
Okay, next we have memorandum of agreement. Chris Ashton, whoa.
I'm just back up. Good evening. Before you today is an MOA, proposed by the, local 503. In the city of Cannon Beach, local 921, members and representatives, they've requested changes to Article 3, which relates to standby time. The current language in the union agreement caps on-call pay at $3.50 a week, which to receive the benefit of being assigned on-call for both water and wastewater, the employee would need to rotate the responsibility within a 3-day period. In a small department like ours, the 3-day period reduces flexibility for employees to schedule vacations, sick or personal time, along with the shared responsibility of being assigned on-call. Some additional background and context on this is, we used to have, one, an e-phone, as we call it. So you're on call either for the water department or the wastewater department. But prior to, my involvement here, we decided to switch to a shared responsibility for both water and wastewater. So there's cross training that's been incorporated, so water individuals can't be on call for wastewater and vice versa. When we did that, we failed to recognize that the current language in the union agreement caps it at $350 a week, which would have made sense. You get $50 a unit, so $50 for being on water times 7 days equals the $350. But when we went to the shared responsibilities, the whole intent was still to allow them to carry the phone and be on call for a 7-day period. Because like I mentioned before, small department, it's harder for them to schedule vacations in life and whatever else if they have to trade the phone off every 3 days, which was not the case before the shared responsibilities. The union worked with the Public Works Department and looked changes to increase the cap to $700 a week, which allows an employee to be assigned on-call for no more than 7 consecutive days. Additionally, to ensure that assignment of on-call duties is a shared responsibility, the city will strive to not have any individual be assigned on-call responsibilities more than once a month. The changes reflected in the attached MOA have no financial impact to the city of Cannon Beach. The city of Cannon Beach labor attorney has reviewed and approved the proposed revisions. And to revise the union agreement, the following MOA is required to be executed by the union representative, which it has been, and the city manager. Additionally, I've provided ahead of the meeting and available for hard copy tonight is a copy of the existing union language that you can see, and then a copy of the MOA with highlights on what has been revised, since it is a complete rewrite of Article 40, which used to be called standby time and now is called on-call duty. Recommendation is to approve and adopt the MOA, and there's a suggested motion below.
Questions?
I move to approve.
Oh.
You guys, question?
I was just, it's probably redundant. Go ahead and make your motion.
I move to approve the MOA between City of Cannon Beach and SCIU Local 921, modifying Article 40 on call duty.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just so the $700 a week, they get that, whether they get called in or not.
That's correct. If they're assigned on-call duty, yeah, for the 7 days, as long as they're willing, they're able to fulfill that time and they don't need a substitute because they got sick or whatever else. Yep.
Okay, that was all. I just wanted to make sure.
Anything else? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Hammond,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Council President Kirk,
Yeah.
Counselor Oakston,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
Good job, Ted.
Hey, do my best.
Okay, now we have rid of the order. Anybody?
And just a reminder for Thursday's joint work session for the COVID run.
That's,
It takes a lot here.
We have 5 o'clock, hey, what, right?
That is the following.
Oh, that's March.
yeah,
Okay.
Did you have coffee with the counselors?
We did.
How did it
oh,
go?
yeah, you guys can.
Well, it was, there was just, 3 people, 2 people or 3 people, I can't remember. And it was just a lot of general discussion. Anita Duba was there and she had a lot of opinions. It was interesting. It was interesting to listen to her. It was really not eventful. I mean, yeah, and so we decided that for next time, I'm contacting Nancy and trying to get her to put out more of a, sort of marketing approach to getting people interested in coming. And if that doesn't work, or there still seems to be a lagging, I mean, to bring all the staff in here for 2 people to come in and talk, it's not make much sense. So we have to wait and see how it goes. If there's an improvement in attendance, you know, because like I said, a lot of people watched it online afterwards. A bunch of people I know.
Well, it was
did that,
easier
and
to-
They can't do it now.
Yeah, to zoom in. So does the, so I know at the last meeting, we kind of talked about OGAC and the short,
And
the short session.
the League of Oregon Cities is, pretty confident that they're gonna make some good clarifications.
So, and even, so we're gonna need to see what those clarifications are, or are you ever gonna give the go-ahead for those to be recorded again, Jody?
I love
She-
to think that I'm God. I think that if OGEC, or sorry, if the legislature sort of makes OGEC's interpretation moot, then I don't see anything wrong with recording it. But I don't know until I see what the new law is. And of course, whatever the new law is will also be subject to OGEC. So it'll just be this constant play between the legislature and the OGEC interpretation of it. But I've heard the same, that they're trying to fix it. I don't know, it's a sausage making fest over there, so I don't know what it's gonna look like at the end, but fingers crossed.
What's the last day of the initial session?
It's 35 days and it started.
I think it's in March. Well-
Yeah.
First week of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay, anything else? Meeting's adjourned.